Start. We already have attendees and we are already on the broadcast. So if somebody would like to watch us on YouTube, just feel free, switch to YouTube and check on nanobotmedical.com. There is a live session. So anyways, let's start. Hi all, welcome to Nanobot Communication webinar. My name is Andrew Koenig. I'm founder of Nanobot. We are a scientific communication agency with our own video production. You just notice our samples of what we are doing. So we provide life science companies with marketing and communication strategies that are efficient, responsive, and centered on reaching measurable ROI. I'm happy to welcome all our attendees and at this webinar. So this is a third webinar in the series of webinars for life science industry. We are organizing in order to spread the knowledge and help life science companies in the European Union to grow faster. So as soon as the name of our webinar is Mastering CRO Communication Across Channels in 2024, so we're supposed to receive some advices and learn useful insights for CRO campaigns, something that you can use in the upcoming year. Today we have our great speakers with us, so let me introduce briefly each one. Susan Kullendal, founder of Markomotion. She's an expert in marketing communications in the life science industry, especially biotech and CRO. Lisa Folks, a founder of Social Elements. She's an expert in social media marketing in life science. And obviously Laura Haldane, a co-founder and VP of sales of SciLeads. She's an expert in lead generation in life science. So I'm excited about this opportunity to gather such a experienced and seasoned experts in one place. So we are able to learn from them and to put our questions about CRO communication. So please, talking to our attendees, please be active during the QA session and feel free to ask any questions in the chat if this is available. So our experts be able to reply to you immediately if there will be a short question, and if there will be a long answer, we will bring this to QA session, which is supposed to be like 10 or 15 minutes after 10 minutes of each speaker. Okay, so we are waiting for our audience. We already have some visitors. So this will be a short information about our audience for speakers. So we have 90% of attendees from Europe and 10% from the United States. We have representatives of several biotech clusters, and most of visitors are business development and marketing managers from CROs and biotech companies. There was a question which each one provided answer. What is your goal for upcoming webinar? So most of our attendees replied that they would like to learn from experts. Some of replies were learn best practice recommendations for 2024, increase efficacy of communication with potential customers, and learn insights trends to include in marketing sales strategy. So this is it. Let's start, and we're supposed to provide a lot of useful information and insights for today. Will stop my share screen and we'll make Susan a co-host, so she'll be able to share her screen. It's yours, Susan.
Great. Thanks, Andre, for the introduction. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, then let's get started. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I think it's a great idea to bring together different actors in the life science, communication, and marketing field and briefly basically talk about the challenges that each of us faces every day. And I would like to start by providing 10 minutes of insight that focus on how to be more effective with your marketing communications in the biotech and pharma field. And so the first thing I would like to address is the drug discovery and development value chain, because each of us is active here in this drug discovery and development process. However, as Andre mentioned, we are active at different points in this value chain. So some of us are biotech companies in the preclinical field, and some are active more in the clinical area, like the CROs or the pharma companies. And communication and marketing varies a lot depending on where you are in this value chain. Clearly, in the clinical sector, you have to be aware of regulatory issues. There is a lot of patient communication or doctors' communication, whereas here in the preclinical sector, it's usually B2B talk between biotechs or medtechs and diagnostic companies. And I just want to make you aware that it is very important to know also where you stand in this process. It seems kind of obvious, but the first advice is to be very clear what your business is. I'm mainly focusing here on the biotech sector. Lara and Lisa later will focus more on the clinical sector. So if you are a biotech company, most of the time you have a technical platform and you can have different clients. You can have a pharmaceutical client or biotech client. And a lot of times those companies are not clearly positioned. So my first advice is be very clear to define your business and to position yourself strategically in this drug development value chain. So basically get yourself a label if you are a biotech in the clinical area or a preclinical area, and prioritize what you actually offer. The next step is that you also want to define and prioritize your markets. Again, you have the drug discovery value chain with the heterogeneous players, and you should basically sort out the market segments that are most important to you this year. This can change in the next year depending on your business goals, but make a plan for this year. Let's say these three groups are the most important groups for you, you want to do business with this year. So define and prioritize your markets. Now you have been clear with strategic positioning, you have defined and prioritized your markets, and now is a good time to set goals and strategies. And marketing doesn't exist in a vacuum. Marketing should always support sales or business development efforts. So my first rule is please make sure you have clearly defined sales goals and priorities. And those can be revenues in certain markets, but they can also be a number of corporations. And depending on your selected target groups, you have your sales goals, and now you can translate them into marketing goals. And this is very important for effectiveness, because clearly if the marketing goals don't align with the sales goals, marketing cannot support your business. And the marketing goals usually are in the area of brand building or operative sales support or business development support and community building. And depending on your market segments, you might have different weighings of these different elements. So now you have done your homework, you know what you are, you've positioned your company, you know who you want to sell to, you've set some goals, and now it's time to define your marketing communication mix, your actual operations in this year. And I emphasize this because a lot of companies come to me And they start with this. They say, okay, what should we do this year? Google Ads or mailings? How many conferences? Which articles? And that's, but it's important to have done these other steps before as a basis. But once you are that far and you can start defining your actual work, it is my belief or my approach that there are three main pillars in your marketing communication mix. And those are content, tools, and channels. Meaning you have to tell the right story to each of these groups and tailor your messages to them. Tools meaning you have to choose media that they engage with. And channels meaning you have to reach them through channels, kind of obvious, where they can be reached. And so if you have problems in your marketing in the past, it's usually one of the three pillars that doesn't really work right. It's either not the right stories or not the media that they engage with, or the channels are not right. And so how can you, with these three aspects, contents, tools, and channels, how can you assemble a roadmap of projects, how to do your marketing? And what I use usually is kind of a matrix that is based on the sales funnel. And what the sales funnel is, it basically says you have to put a lot of prospective clients in there. You have to reach a lot of them until in the end you have a buying customer. And of course, you want this customer to come back. And during the travel through this sales funnels, you want to lead the prospective clients through the funnel in what is called the customer journey. There are different stages. And in these different stages, you have different requirements for marketing. The first is, of course, you need to create visibility. Then you have to raise awareness in order to get leads and clients. And the nice thing is that for each of these stages, you have a matrix for contents, tools, and channels. So, for example, let's say this is a target group that is a new market segment you want to reach. Then, of course, the first thing is you want to create visibility, and then you choose content that addresses a problem or inspires them to contact you. And you want to use tools that with a broad reach, such as Google Ads or LinkedIn, where you can target specific industry segments. And Lisa will talk more about that. But you can also choose, of course, congresses and trade fairs that are always very nice to get in clear contact with new groups and provide the opportunity for you to position yourself as a new player in the field. And Laura will talk about how to make the most out of congresses. So this is my kind of matrix that I use to really assemble a roadmap with marketing communication, for marketing communication that is effective because it really aligns the content, tools, and channels with the different needs of the different target groups. Yeah, and the last advice that I have is test it. Don't plan it for 2 years. This roadmap, plan it for maybe half a year. Test what you have put together. And the most important is monitor it. Monitor success. This is usually easy for digital tools, but there are also means to monitor meetings and other things that you do. And then repeat. And yeah, my basic credo is just do it. Just do your marketing. And yeah, that has been it for now. From my side, I'm happy to discuss with you. Please put your questions in the chats. And now I would like to pass over to Lisa from Social Elements, who will cover more the interesting field of social media, especially LinkedIn. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you so much for sharing knowledge with us, Susan. I'm just adding Lisa. Done. Lisa, it's your turn. Please share your screen.
Thank you, Andre. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Suzanne, for the introduction. So my part of the webinar this afternoon will be focused on social media strategies to focus on in 2024. So I'll be covering the following elements. I'll be covering social media trends in 24, utilizing AI in social media. AI has become a really big buzzword in 23 and it continues to do so this year. I'll also be looking at how to use social media as a lead generation tool for CROs and biotechs. And then I'll be delving into a couple of real world CRO examples for you. So first up, social media trends for 24. So what trends are poised to shape the way CROs interact with the social media world this year? Well, I couldn't really have this presentation today without mentioning generative AI. These tools have been around since last year, well, before that really, but people have been talking about them more intensely since last year, and they'll continue to play a big part in marketing this year as well. So these tools are there to support communications, and they're excellent for coming up with campaign concepts, for writing simple post copy generation, and also text to image generation. And companies are starting to rely heavily on these tools, and they are really, really useful. But just a word of warning, really, in that the tools are only as good as the information that's out there in the internet. So if the information is proprietary to a company, which it so often is with biotech companies, then generative AI will not necessarily know about it. Last year, we also saw an increase in trend in thought leaderships and employee advocacy. And we saw an increase in trend in company executives posting content from their LinkedIn profiles. This is a really good thing to do. It serves to demonstrate their expertise and thought leadership, and also serves to improve visibility and authority for their companies. In 24, it will be even more important for C-suite staff to have a voice on LinkedIn and also to become center stage. Their profiles will likely both overshadow and also potentiate the company profiles as more users crave to see more human content. We'll also see an increase in employee advocacy in 24. Authenticity is going to be key in shaping audience perceptions and plays an important role in long-term success for companies on social media. And being authentic means sharing real stories, engaging in meaningful conversations, and showcasing the human side of your brand. This allows you to build a solid emotional connection with your followers, which ultimately leads to increased engagement, brand advocacy, and business growth. And the most successful businesses on social media use their employees as brand ambassadors and faces of their products. And this is applicable to B2B marketing as well as B2C as well. So next, the demand for video content and live streaming is going to continue to soar on social media. Providing live updates on clinical trials or educational sessions through video can foster transparency and engagement with stakeholders for CRO companies. And patient disease awareness campaigns are already increasing in numbers on TikTok. In the world of influencer marketing, we'll see an evolution as well. CROs can leverage partnerships with industry experts and advocates to raise awareness about clinical trials and also their importance. Finally, it's crucial to keep an eye on emerging social media platforms, and we can't talk about social media without mentioning TikTok. TikTok and both LinkedIn are likely to dominate the social media landscape in 2024. We've already seen a massive surge in growth relating to TikTok, and LinkedIn have grabbed quite a few of Twitter's disgruntled followers as well. TikTok's actually becoming invaluable within the healthcare realm in general, with many companies using it for health and disease awareness campaigns. And LinkedIn, in an effort to keep up, has implemented lots and lots of changes in recent times. So moving on to utilising artificial intelligence and how that can transform the landscape of social media for CROs. One of the most promising applications of AI in social media for CROs is patient recruitment. Imagine the ability to identify and engage potential clinical trial participants with pinpoint accuracy. Well, AI algorithms can enable you to do that. They can analyze vast amounts of social media data to identify potential clinical trial participants. They can also analyze large amounts of social media data to target specific demographics, geographical regions, or even individuals who meet the criteria for clinical trials. This level of precision will undoubtedly save valuable time and resources. As well as patient recruitment, AI can play a pivotal role in ensuring regulatory compliance and monitoring safety-related discussions on social media platforms. CROs can leverage AI-driven tools to keep track of mentions related to their clinical trials, promptly addressing any adverse events or patient sentiments. And this proactive approach aids in meeting regulatory requirements and ensuring patient safety. And actually, AI tools are being developed in order to help companies who wish to market within the UK to make sure that they're compliant with the ABPI Code of Practice guidelines as well. So that's going to be a massive help. So beyond compliance and recruitment, AI-powered data analytics are also revolutionizing how CROs and biotech companies approach drug development through social media. Imagine gaining valuable insights into patient experiences, opinions, and preferences by analysing conversations on social media. This data can then inform trial designs, endpoints, and even early-stage drug development strategies. So how can social media be used as a lead generation tool for biotechs and CROs? Sorry. As we have already heard, social media offers an invaluable opportunity to showcase expertise and its KOLs, engage with industry-specific groups, and ultimately attract potential clients. So some tips for you for marketing and to use social media for lead generation. First of all is grow your community, and that I'm talking about your individual LinkedIn presence, reaching out to your connections and fostering new connections with other people on LinkedIn really helps your company's lead generation. Create compelling content that also demonstrates your capability and knowledge, as well as your company's capabilities and knowledge. Engage with industry-specific groups and communities to build relationships. You can also leverage targeted paid advertising campaigns to reach potential clients. And you can also engage the audience and demonstrate thought leadership through white papers, case studies, and webinars. And also don't be afraid to leverage your company executives as well. And I think it's also worth noting that according to a report by HubSpot last year, 80% of B2B leads come from LinkedIn. So it's definitely worth implementing LinkedIn as part of your marketing strategy for lead generation. So finishing up now with a couple of real world examples of CRO companies doing well on social media currently. So first up is IQVIA. They use a combination of educational webinars, informative blog posts, and also targeted LinkedIn campaigns to attract potential clients. Their thought leadership content also positions them as industry experts, and this undoubtedly will drive inquiries from interested parties. And then the other example I wanted to draw your attention to is Syneos Health. They initiate engaging conversations on Twitter and Facebook by using relevant hashtags and discussions. And it's notable that they actively participate in conversations. They're not just pushing content out there. So they've built a strong online presence, and hopefully this has also captured the attention of potential clients seeking their services as well. So that's the end of my segment of the webinar. I'll be happy to answer any short questions that have come up now, or address the questions at the end of the presentation. I'll be happy to hand over to Laura now, who's VP of Site Leads. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Lisa. I'm just switching to Laura. By the way, I have a question from Alistair for Suzanne. We will reply your question during the QA session. And now I will switch to Laura. Okay, we are set to go. Feel free to share your screen.
Perfect. So thanks, Suzanne, Lisa, for setting those up. And really my focus today is on the trade shows. So this is a big part of what we do in Site Leads. The reason why it's a big part of what we do, I should have had this more on a presentation, is because everyone that we work with, the CROs and the biotechs, when we speak to the marketing managers, their biggest annoyance of the year is how much money they spend on trade shows, and for quite little ROI, to be honest. So it's a big push that we're doing to basically get more information for those people so that they have, when they arrive at the show, they can do a lot more and get a lot more ROI. So the trade shows that we cover, this is a number of them, slight dip at 2020 for obvious reasons, but it goes up and up and up because it's just becoming more and more important for people. So I have 5 steps here in terms of how to work out and get your best ROI on your trade shows. The first one is basically determining the best shows initially. So historically, you maybe would have just gone to the same shows over and over and over, but it's actually no longer relevant because since COVID, things look very different. So we can look at our analytics. Before, maybe the likes of AACR would have had an awful lot of European attendees, and they would have been a lot of pharma industry guys attending that show. Whereas we found post-COVID, it really hasn't returned to what it used to look like, and it's very, very US focused. And in fact, a lot of the US shows are the same. So you said, Andre, there that our audience is 90% European. So if you're looking for European clients, it probably makes more sense now post-COVID to go to the shows closer to home than it might have before. Obviously, if you're trying to sell into North America, then going to those shows is perfect. But don't just keep going to the shows. Make sure that you have a look at those shows and reevaluate them because they do look very different now in this sort of post-COVID world. Analysis of potential new shows is another big one. So basically, you can have a look at new shows that are coming up because they're coming up all the time. You can do that for various ways. You can look through your different keywords. We obviously do this for our clients, but you can look it up on Google, and you can also look up local shows. So always remember to type those in. It's helpful if you live in, Boston or Berlin, where there's lots of shows all the time. But regardless of where you live, do have a quick look on the local ones, because while it may not be worthwhile to travel to them, they're probably worth, walking the exhibition hall and setting up meetings when you're there, which we'll chat more about in a moment. And competitor analysis is another way to get good ideas in terms of which shows to attend. So go onto their website, have a look through the shows that they plan to attend or they have last year, just to make sure that you're not missing anything that they're at as well. So once you've determined your show, you've got your pre-show activities. And actually, honestly, this is where we find a lot of the sort of CROs that we work with would normally not do as well as they should, because they weren't doing any pre-show activity. They were kind of just, rocking up to the show and hoping that it goes well rather than actually, putting effort in beforehand. So there's a few things that you can do for your pre-show activities. If you're going to a show, that is a lot of effort and a lot of money that you've already committed to that show. So it honestly does make sense to spend time in making sure that you know who's going to be at that show. Obviously, we do this for our clients, but everyone can do it manually. You're on the website of the show, you will be able to see the abstracts of, for example, all of the posters, all the panel sessions, all of the speakers. If you take some time, you can take all of those people. If they're speaking at a poster or at an event, then they're obviously there. So you've effectively, at that stage, got an attendee list without actually having to buy one. So you can then get the list of attendees. What you would typically do then is reach out to them. So you could reach out to say, come by booth number, whatever. I'd love to find out more about your poster. And if you personalize that based on the poster that you got their details from, then they're much more inclined then to come by your booth. The other thing you can do with that poster is obviously work out, are they relevant? So it depends who your end user is at that show, but that poster will tell you what scientific, tools or techniques they're using, whether they're an actual relevant customer for you. If you don't have a booth, you can also do the same thing, but invite them to your poster or your event. So often our smaller sort of startups, they wouldn't necessarily have a booth. They would have a scientific poster where they would then invite the others to come and see them at the poster. And that actually that works really, really well. We have other CRO clients who split the list, where they take the academics, maybe invite them to a poster because they're more engaged in the scientific sort of information sharing. And then they will take the more pharma heavy guys and they will invite them to like a party or something that evening, which, with drinks and food, and that's a bit more their scene, really to engage there. So it'll be a different approach depending on your end user, but from our CRO client point of view, they quite often actually split the two and do both. And even if you're not like having a booth, you can walk the show. So this would be like very applicable for those local shows that you maybe wouldn't have attended otherwise, but they're nearby, why not? You can basically walk the show, set up the meetings. Honestly, if you do a campaign a week before and send out a bunch of emails and say, hey, I'll be there, can we have a meeting, and no one replies, then you just don't go. And if 5 people reply and they're awesome meetings, then you go. It's quite nice because you can be flexible about it. So if you walk in the show, do the same thing, set up the meetings, and then that way you're not just going and sort of like hoping you bump into the right people as well. So once you attend the event, you need to stand out. So often, always, you should wear a uniform. So you can see me with my nice stylish t-shirt, and this because we wear these at the booth. There's a number of reasons why we should do this at the booth. So one is, when you're standing at the booth and there's no customers and you're chatting to your colleague, if you are not wearing a uniform, it's actually very difficult for your customers to determine whether you're already speaking to a customer that they can, they don't want to interrupt, or you're just chatting to your colleague about what you're going to have for lunch. So it's really important to wear a uniform for that reason, because you could have done all that great pre-outreach and there were loads of people coming by, but they didn't want to interrupt you when you're speaking. So that's one big reason that you should be wearing some sort of uniform that identifies you as someone on that booth. But the other nice thing about being branded is you're basically then a walking advertisement, regardless of whether you're in the booth, you've gone for a walk, you might be walking around the poster session, might be at lunch where you're just like sitting on the line for lunch. You can, when you're walking home to the hotels, even sitting at the hotel bar, as long as you're behaving yourself, then absolutely keep your branded top on, because obviously we're all staying in the same hotels when we're at these events and you can still meet more people. I had a fantastic meeting in a business lounge on the way home one show, purely because I was wearing my Sally's top and that particular person was wearing a branded backpack, so I knew what company it was. And that was really, really useful. So if you're standing out, if you're branded, it really helps get better ROI at the show. And go walking is another one. So I mean, an awful lot of people will go to the show and sit there. I have a few clients that ban chairs. I think that's maybe a wee bit OTT because it's actually very nice to have a chair to sit down because your feet get very sore at these things. But if you've done your pre-show outreach, where people are. Particularly those that are presenting posters, you even know what time they're going to be standing there. So if they've ghosted you in your initial email or LinkedIn outreach, you can just walk by them at the right time and be like, oh, hi, I've been trying to get in touch. How are you? They're standing right there. So don't expect them to necessarily come to you. One of our clients that I did a similar webinar with recently, they said that basically for all of their product managers or sales guys that are at the shows, they make them take 5 of the posters as just really key targets. And within this show, then they need to approach those 5 people to speak to them at the show. And then freebies and competitions is another way to engage people. So like the post-its is a funny one. Actually, quite a few of our clients will do this. And it's a little bit like going walking. You've already determined the posters or the talks that are relevant to you. If particular posters are relevant, what some of our clients do is they have these cool post-its where they just run around in the morning and they'll probably post it on the cool posters that are very relevant to the person that they want to speak to. And those post-its will say, please come by to booth whatever, I'd love to chat to you. Or we've got this, if you're selling into academics at all, it's nice to have some sort of grant that says, your research is interesting for our grant, come by and get it. So that's been a really cool one. It kind of just piggybacks on having done the work already. You can get those up and get more people to the booth. Freebies is an interesting one as well, and there's pros and cons here in terms of whether you just get traffic and it's not relevant traffic, so who cares? If you're a CRO trying to target, pharma guys and these students and postdocs are just taking all of your freebies, that's not so good. But we do find that people that have freebies, if you have, like, for example, like cuddly toys, they're actually very helpful for people at shows because the parents among us know that we have to then panic in the airport on the way home because we've forgotten to get anything. So having them at the booth is always helpful. And if your kid is running around with a teddy bear that has a very branded t-shirt, that makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside, so they're always a good one. And local things are very good as well. So like for us personally, we find like Irish whiskey, for example, is really, really effective because it's not something that people see very often. The competitions are an awesome one. Again, you don't want to have a competition and just have everyone apply, non-relevant people. So again, it comes back to the prep, and I'm just going to go on about that so much. But if you have done the prep, the people that you are wanting to, entice at the show. Don't have the competition on your booth. Instead, reach out in your email about the competition. So we have clients that do this really, really well, where they'll send an email out and they'll say, come by the booth to enter into the draw for Amazon vouchers. And they only send it to people who are relevant to them. So if someone then approaches your booth to say, I'd like to enter into the draw, they're effectively saying, hey, I am your potential customer and you definitely should take notice of me, rather than even having to do even more sort of discovery questions. So that works really well. In terms of the prize, it was funny. I remember being at a show and 2 clients did a similar competition. One was to win an Apple Watch, which was cool and fancy at the time. And the other one was for £100 Amazon vouchers. And the Amazon vouchers went so much better. And it was sort of counter to me at the time because the Apple Watch was actually quite sexy tech at the time. But if you imagine, an Apple iWatch, it already alienates Android users, it alienates people that already have one, it alienates maybe the older generation who aren't interested. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, what age you are or what you're into, you can spend $100 of Amazon vouchers. So to be honest, that has always been the best one. It's always got the best response, and don't be tempted by the nice tech. So you've attended the event and now you've got your post-show activity. So the first one is the people that you met, absolutely follow them up, no brainer. given that you've already done your work, you know what their poster was, you know what their the scientific content is, and you can basically reach out and chat to them. So that one is kind of an obvious one. The people you missed is another brilliant one. So you know who was there, you know who you saw. It's still worth then doing another sort of like, sorry, I missed you. Did you catch that cool speaker, or did you really enjoy the churros that booth was giving away? There's really nice things you can say. Now that we're home, are you free to do a Zoom call? I would have loved to have caught up more about your, the information you mentioned here in your poster. So actually, like, our clients are finding this is more effective than actually even like the leads that they get at the show itself. People may have seen your booth, so like that is going to have a compound effect, but absolutely reach out to them after. Because actually in what we do inside Leads is we cover the attendees for like 2,000 shows a year. They're actually then reaching out to people at shows that they never were at in the first place, and that's as effective as attending them. So it just means generally across the board, we're seeing people going to fewer and fewer trade shows because you're able to do this sort of digital approach, use social media, as Lisa says, in order to catch these people, whether you were attending or not. And then the retrospective, of course, so that is just looking at how it went and while it's fresh in your brain, because again, we don't want to get into this situation where we're just going to the exact same shows because we go to that show. You really do need to analyze what you got from it, how many meetings, what sales you got, to see whether that is actually a worthwhile show, or are you just sort of stuck in your ways of where you've been going before. So I mentioned as well that you can do this even if you're not going to shows. So maybe you're sitting here being like, well, I don't have the budget for this because we're just starting out. Well, you can do all of this just not even leaving the house. So it's a similar sort of approach. Get that data from the shows you're not attending. It's all there. All the abstracts are there. I mean, if you want, you can reach out to people, and if you don't get enough meetings, don't go, but you can message them and say like, sorry, I can no longer attend, but let's have a Zoom call instead. And that is a really, really effective approach, because what poster they're presenting, what they're doing. It's a really lovely targeted email to send to people, and it works really, really well in saving money because you don't actually need to attend the show. We did a lot of this in COVID. We thought we had to attend so many shows, and then we realized then, because we were reaching out being like, hey, the show was cancelled, can we have a Zoom? Everyone's like, yeah. And we were like, why don't we? No, we still go to shows because they're awesome. But, you can still do quite a lot with not even having attended the show. People mentioning your products is another fantastic one. So if you've done all that work, all of the abstracts of the posters, for example, if people are mentioning your products, you'll be able to identify that and do like a marketing campaign around it. So often our clients now, they'll get a ping to say that someone's mentioned their product in their poster, and it's just free publicity that you can do a bit of free marketing on social media. And it means that, yeah, it's a really nice way to get a better ROI, even if you're not attending that show. And account-based marketing, that's a bit of a buzzword this year as well. So we find that actually trying to target the large pharma in particular using the trade shows is really, really effective. So if you find the trade shows that the relevant people in Pfizer are presenting at, for example, reaching out to them, mentioning their poster or that trade show that they spoke at is a really nice in, rather than sort of trying to send a generic message into the company. It also is a nice way to very quickly take an account and identify the people that are the right people to speak to based on, the particular science or whatever. And that's really it. In terms of what we do in Leads, we can run a report actually more on probably the bit, the step one, where we can take your keywords. I can run a report and I'll send that to you if you wish, so that you can analyze what are the top trade shows that are matching of the 2,000 that are coming up this year, or where are the local ones, or any of the stuff I chatted about. So if you're interested in that, send me a ping and I'll get that sorted for anyone on this webinar.
Thank you, Laura. And just while I'm adding other panelists for a highly anticipated QA session, there is a question for you. Which conferences you would advise to visit for lead generation for CRO in 2024?
So yeah, it really will depend on your keywords, which is where those sort of tailored reports come in really well. So if there are particular end users that you want, ping them across to me and I'll send them. As I say, some shows are more industry heavy than others, but don't forget about the likes of ACR and those maybe more academic show. There are a lot of industry guys that are there as well, and they're really beneficial for our CRO clients to attend.
Got it. Great. Okay, so we're ready to start our QA session. So we have our first question is from Alistair. Which tools and channels would you prioritize in order to penetrate or like local markets if you have a small budget?
Okay. If you have a small budget, it is important to really sort out the most effective tools, obviously. So really think about where are the people going to that you want to target. Is there a special meeting that they go to? Is there a key meeting? Then you should, of course, you should go there and try to do all the things that Laura just described. However, with a small budget in general, I would choose digital tools because they are usually cheap. If you do a Google Ads campaign, it's a couple of hundred euros a month. You can be very effective in accessing new client groups all over the world. If you use LinkedIn and sponsored LinkedIn campaigns, you can be very effective in targeting new market segments, also with a small amount of money. So that's my advice, would be prefer digital tools and couple them with a few very important meetings.
Okay, great. Do you want to add, Laura, Lisa?
No, I mean, from my perspective, as Suzanne said, I would, if budget is small, I would utilize the free aspects of social media first. You can actually get quite a lot out of LinkedIn with just the free platform without having to do any sort of paid. So I would, I'd maximize that first. And in terms of social media, I would focus on LinkedIn as your primary platform. It's better to do one social media platform really well rather than, try to do all of them badly.
Yeah, absolutely. And this brings us actually to this main question, which we discussed previously with while we were preparation for this event. So how to use LinkedIn for lead generation effectively, right? So let's can you share your ideas for that?
So again, on what the girls are saying, like I actually think the free tools are more effective than the paid tools in LinkedIn. I cancelled all of our sales nav because honestly the free stuff is just as good. In-mails are absolutely useless. When's the last time any of us replied to an in-mail? So instead, what we would advise is determine what your acceptance rate is on LinkedIn whenever you connect with them. Don't write them a message because we find that makes it less likely for them to actually accept you. I know that our baseline for a brand new member of staff in Leads is 25%. That means that if I want an account to accept me, we need to add 4 people. And just be aware that you have a limit of around 120 connections that you can make in that week. So just prioritize them effectively. But once they then accept you, at that point, then you can send them a message totally free. Now, again, if you've done your research and you couple that with the trade shows, kind of like what Suzanne was saying, and to couple the sort of digital with the trade shows, then at least then you're sending them an actual targeted message based on what they've actually done. And that's the reason why you're reaching out to them. If you do have sales nav already, you can actually do a trigger on the people that are posting on LinkedIn, which shows you the active people on LinkedIn already. So it means you're a bit less blind when you're choosing what are the 4 that I'm going to connect with. But yeah, for me, the free tools are actually, you get a much better ROI. There's no substitute to sitting, doing a bit of research and doing these one by one. All these AI tools, they look cool and all this automation. Honestly, I just don't think, unless you have a huge market, which we just honestly don't here, there's only so many people that you can sell to in this market. So I just think sitting and spending the time to do that more tailored outreach yourself is much more effective.
I've made an observation with different clients that I agree with Laura that the free tools are with LinkedIn. You can do a lot with them. You don't need paid tool necessarily. But I realized that a lot of people in their LinkedIn communities, it's like a closed bubble. So it's good for community building with existing clients, with existing partners. But if they want to access new market segments, it's often difficult for them to reach out to these new groups, and that's when I think that maybe sponsored campaigns that you can tailor to different groups are maybe helpful. I don't know, Lisa, what's your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think using your employees to advocate for your company page is a really good way of extending the reach of your company page, especially if you're just starting out. So I would sort of have a kind of dual approach where you're trying to grow the company page and sharing content on there, but also looking after your senior leaders' LinkedIn accounts as well, and also your employees. So encourage them to share content, and it's like a sort of pincer movement. You're attacking it from all sides. But yeah, you're right. If you do have some money to spend, then sponsored content on LinkedIn is really great for increasing brand awareness, and just because the targeting is so precise, it's really good to find people that you need for your business. I also think LinkedIn groups are quite an underutilized population as well. And actually posting within LinkedIn groups has the benefit that all of LinkedIn can see that content if they're a member of that group. Whereas if you post yourself, only your first and second and third degree connections will be able to see that content. So it kind of expands the reach a little bit, posting within a group.
Okay, great. Thank you for your answers. So, and what are your thoughts on the use of TikTok for CROs?
I think it's still, I'm a bit on the fence, if I'm honest. I think it's still quite early days. And I think it's easy to just disregard TikTok and just think, oh, it's just for the youth, it's just for the teenagers and the younger generation. But I think what you have to remember is that they are growing up, and they are growing up in a world where sort of easy to digest video content is so easy to use. And so there's a lot more, I mentioned there's a lot more disease awareness campaigns on TikTok. And I think that's going to be key for CROs. Maybe not this year, but it's definitely coming. I think it will be a really good way to sort of understand patients, understand the disease itself, and it's also a good way to reach patients as well.
And what about Instagram?
I think, again, Instagram is one of those platforms that you sort of associate with the younger generation. A lot of businesses that I work with tend to use it for sort of employee branding and sort of demonstrating what it's like to work in the business, and what it's like to work at the company, more so than a sort of patient perspective. So I think that will continue to be the case for Instagram.
Do you have experience with ResearchGate?
Sorry?
You have experience with ResearchGate, because obviously that's the social media platform for scientists, and I have not gathered much experience with it, but I believe that might be something if you're looking to for stakeholders in the research community.
Yeah,
Well,
possibly. No, I don't have much. I think people are looking for an alternative to Twitter, or X as it's now called. Whereas, in the past, a lot of scientists would hang out on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So possibly, other things will take over from that. But yeah, no, I don't have much experience of that platform myself, no.
Mm-hmm.
Find that ResearchGate is very academic heavy for sure. So if you're trying to target those that are in the pharma companies, they typically won't be there. It's also really tricky to reach out to them. You can't really just like ping them, and there's no contact details or anything there. Whereas it's much easier, obviously, on LinkedIn to reach out to them. So like in my experiences, it's an awful lot of work to maintain multiple different channels. And honestly, if you're going to pick one, you pick LinkedIn, hands down. Don't even think about the other ones because that, all the others combined don't even go anywhere near LinkedIn. So doubling down on your LinkedIn, and as Lisa says, your company page, but even more so on the people page. The people are the ones that get the leads rather than the actual company.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Well, while working for our clients last year, we were just comparing LinkedIn ads and ResearchGate ads. Indeed, it is more academic, and it is like on the early stage maybe because they have this feed, and on the right upper corner you have a place for your ad, and that's pretty all you have. But they are growing, and there is still a potential. So I would advise to try it and to do A/B testing anyways. And continuing about social media, there are a lot of questions for social media. So we have this hashtags on LinkedIn, Instagram, everywhere. How would you advise to use hashtags in social media?
So I treat hashtags like keywords, really. So the main thing you have to remember is that hashtags help you to be found and your content to be found. So the numbers of the amounts of hashtags vary from platform to platform. Like for example, Instagram, you tend to use lots and lots. Twitter, maybe one or two, but that's more governed by your character limit. And then LinkedIn, I tend to use between 3 to 5. There is some talk that LinkedIn are downgrading the importance of hashtags.
Mm-hmm.
And there's even some talk that they're kind of taking them away completely, which is a strange move because they're quite late to the hashtag party, if you like. But they're still being used at the moment. And I think the take-home message from LinkedIn is that it's a good idea to use keywords in your post copy text and use hashtags as well. So but yeah, I mean, I use them. They're quite good to use as a search tool on LinkedIn and on the other social media platforms as well. If you're interested in content, I don't know, maybe about, bladder cancer, for example, do hashtag bladder cancer, and then you'll see all the posts associated with that. And it's quite good to sort of find new people to connect with and new content to share.
Yeah, but
And that works well with shows as well. So honestly, for me, the hashtags don't have any bearing on my impressions number. The only time that I'll use them is if it's about a show, if we're attending a show or talking about a show, because equally, as you say, Lisa, it's a search, so it's able then to find anyone that's going to be at neuroscience. If I'm going to be there, I might as well click on that and see.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and that's the relevant aspect. I think a hashtag makes only sense if there is a certain search volume. If you make a hashtag for synaptic vesicle fusion, probably there are only 2 people in the world who are looking for this hashtag. So that's my experience at the beginning. For years we put a lot of effort in defining hashtags, and then it's like if they are very exotic, no one cares. But I agree with Laura, it's a good idea for meetings or popular searches where these are keywords for your prospective clients or partners.
Yeah. They're quite good for like disease awareness days and things like that as well, where there's a theme. Yeah, and it's quite good to make unique hashtags associated with your business because it's sort of part of your branding then, and it helps you to be sort of identifiable. It's like it becomes like your tagline, doesn't it, as well?
Okay, so there is another question. So how do you generate or recommend to generate effective content? What is effective content, and how to use AI to generate effective content in scientific communications? What are your thoughts?
Can I start?
Yeah.
So for me, effective content is the content that is tailored to your target group. I mean, the story has to be appealing to whoever you want to target, and it has to fit to the stage of the customer journey that they are in. So you want to produce content of different stages, more general content, more specific content to your technology or your services, and content that is sales related. It's like a sales pitch. So you have the optimal, you have beforehand, before you use it, you have something like a content bank where you produce in advance different content messages, and then you can basically take them out for each of the tools you use according to your marketing plan. That's my
Yeah, I would agree. Knowing your audience is key. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And what about using AI in scientific communication?
I think it's really good for helping you to come up with content ideas. And I think it's also pretty good for reformatting posts as well. So it's quite nice, I think, sometimes just to throw your thoughts down on a piece of paper and then ask AI to reformat it, so it's grammatically correct or so that it's got a certain tone. I find it quite useful from that perspective. I haven't used it to generate content plans or anything like that. I've heard some people have used it to come up with sort of campaign concept ideas. But I think because, as I mentioned, a lot of the information of the clients I deal with is proprietary, it's not necessarily going to help with campaign ideas. I don't think so. So I tend to use it mostly as a kind of grammar checker, really. Yeah.
Okay. And please do.
I find in terms of the image creation, it just saves time rather than trying to find a stock image that meets my format. It's just nice to pop it into Midjourney and you can get very nice images out of there. And I know that if you're really tailoring, so I had a client who was actually going out to raise money and they sold like well plate devices. So they had this image where they made like well plates and then they had coins in each of them because that was tailored to their, their investor deck. So there's really cool things you can do there very, very quickly, which will save you time. But yeah, just be aware that obviously you don't own the copyright or anything on any of those AI images you create. So you can't only do it if you're just doing a random LinkedIn post and it's of no consequence if someone steals that image on you.
Awesome. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us and sharing your knowledge. We have to fit in our time, mind our time. So thank you so much. We have some more questions, but well, we have to fit the time. So dear attendees, if you have any further questions, if you would like to meet our panelists and talk to them, feel free to reach me or just them directly on LinkedIn and receive answers for your questions. Meanwhile, thank you so much. I'm grateful for your time and keep watching our webinars. We are going to provide more interesting and useful information in the future. That's it. Thank you so much. Hope you like it.
Thanks for organizing.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.